watched all of this, not all of it, but much of it being filmed. How do you make editing decisions? What do you have? Do you stack things in files? Is this a linear here, a linear here?
Tracey's got the most unique process I've ever heard of.
I'd be curious about that because we see a lot of documentaries, and I'm curious about how we put these things together.
Well, the way I do things, you know the old-fashioned composition books we had in elementary school that are black and white where you have to write essays? So once I get my footage, I go back and I sit, put my headphones on, and by hand, because I can't with the computer do it, so by hand I listen to every word and I write every word out by hand of what's in the of the footage that I have. Then I break that into categories like, oh, okay, he's talking about the audience. So then I do that process. So then when it comes time for me to, when I figure out, I mean, I already have the story arc in my head, but once I decide to piece it all together, I'm like, okay, I remember Julia talked about the audience over here. Oh, and then I have it, and I label my books. I'll go, Julia, Kate, you know. And that's how I put it all together. And then I go back, and I start ripping it apart. He rips it apart, too.
I wondered how did you respond to the film?
The question is, how did I respond to the film? I've seen it twice before, and I have to tell you that I responded very well tonight in company of people that I know and am familiar with, number one. Number two, I've gotten used to seeing myself on film, which first time horrifies me. It's like when you people listen to yourselves on a tape recorder for the that's me. Ah! And so there's a learning curve, and I just thought that Tracey and Peter did a fantastic job, and I'm honored to have been a part of it.
Livingston, I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning of this process, when we all agreed we were going to do this together, you had only one request. You said, try to shoot me from the sides. And we did. We tried to shoot you from interesting angles.
By the way, they're forgetting what I really said is do not fill a film with a, at the time, 65-year-old old guy. Do yourself a favor, wander around the Berklee College of Music, come to my classes, film young people filled with enthusiasm, because that makes a good movie.
And many of those young people you see in the film, I mean, I don't know if you guys even know this, but Jessica LaCoy, she's currently opening for Great White. This just happened. I mean,
Stop your noise!
Yeah, I mean, she's like, she moved to Nashville and she happened immediately. So
Yeah,
a lot of those
great.
kids you're going to hear from again, I can promise you.
Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering at what point in a student's career they take your course, and whether you've always taught the performance course, and have you taught any other course? I mean, obviously you teach this course very well. I was just wondering.
This is a course that I wrote, and I was asked by Rob Rose to teach this, and it's my belief that if you can't perform it, at a certain point it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are, you're going to have to be able to speak your vision to somebody eventually. And that requires that you see them. That requires that they be out there and that vision comes across, and you've got to advocate for your vision, and it requires real aggression. I teach my students how to shake hands. I teach them how to meet people. I teach them how to walk up to, hi, what's your name?
Adrian.
Adrian. Livingston Taylor, so good to see you. I'm so glad you're here tonight. And it just worked that crowd to death. When I do a show, I walk. If there's a line waiting to come in, I make it a point to walk that to get something out of my car. So I just walk the whole line and just shake people's hands, meet them. see them. What people needed more than anything was they needed to believe that they mattered. And I'm fond of saying about my audience, and saying to my students, your audience is not your problem, they're your salvation. And so when I think about an audience, when I see you people here, I see my audience, it just fills me full of joy. I love an audience, and I love being in their presence. And as I say to my students, they don't have to love me. I love them enough for the both of us. We're all done here. And this is why people are very comfortable when I play. And when I walk on stage, they look at me and they just go. That's because we're all set.
I would say I would encourage Livingston to teach a songwriting course because I think that his writing is spectacular.
Second to none.
And if you don't know his music or his lyrics, you should study them. One of my favorite lines is, heck no, Judge, I'm cold sober. I've been that way all week. I promised my lawyer I wouldn't be drinking when it came my time to speak.
That's a country song, predictably.
But they're just like the one that we heard, like something that I got a little brill cream in my hair. I mean, that's an image.
Life is good, spring is in the air, you got $2 in your pocket and a little brill cream in your hair.
$2 in your pocket, a little brill cream in your hair. Anyway, so the lyrics are amazing. So maybe we'll rope into teaching that songwriting class.
The problem with teaching a songwriting class is that, and by the way, I have a songwriting group out in San Francisco that I work with, and so often I would watch these men. It's a men's group, and they would get together and they would play their songs, and then they would critique their songs. And I look at them and go, guys, your problem isn't the songs. The problem is the performance of the songs. It's terrible. And so you work on performance, and after you get that bass up a little bit, then you start to tweak lyrics. What is your opening line? How do your words flow? These sorts of things. You can get into the technical aspects of songwriting, but if you can't perform it, it's very, very tough. Ben and James and I, we talk about this. We talk about you guys all the time. Where's the crowd? How do they feel? What are they doing? You cannot imagine the focus of attention. By the way, one of the masters of this is an old friend of mine, and a master of seeing his audience is a guy named Jimmy Buffett. And Jimmy is unbelievable. So we were doing this Boston Strong. There was a Boston Strong benefit, and at Boston Garden, and all of these players were there. Boston and Aerosmith and Jason Aldean, I think, was there. And anyhow, my brother James was there, and Jimmy Buffett. And Jimmy has learned to do something that's really remarkable. It's one of the reasons why I'm so excited to get into Berklee this fall. But I was standing backstage, and Jimmy Buffett has developed an ability to cloak, to disappear. Somehow, for people like James or myself or Steven Tyler, we have a tougher time disappearing. And I can tell you, it is exhausting it's exhausting for me to be in public. I can't imagine what James goes through to have people walk up to him and say, James, I just wanted to tell you, when my wife was giving birth to her third child. And this has been a momentous occasion for them. And for James, or for me, or for Jimmy to say, listen, I'm sorry. I just want to finish my cup of coffee. Just not be bothered. And so the question is, what would you say to James if you had that type of detail and he said that back to you? And the answer is, you would say, you're a jerk. You didn't, this was given in pure love, but it is exhausting. And Jimmy Buffett's ability to cloak and disappear, I'm telling you, it's absolutely remarkable. So I look over, we're at Boston Garden, and I look over, and there's Buffett standing in the middle of 15 people, and I recognize him, but nobody else does. And he stands there for about 20 minutes, just watching people go on and off stage, watching the crowd, and he's just looking. He's taking it all in. And all of a sudden, it's his time to go on. He uncloaks. He becomes Jimmy Buffett. What? He uncloaks, he becomes Jimmy Buffett. He walks out on that stage. And because he had been watching that audience, feeling them, knowing the whole space, he walks out. Well, how y'all doing tonight? And everybody in that crowd just looked at him and just went, oh. They were so, he was so in the moment and so knowledgeable of the moment. It was beautiful and a real learning event for me. No, Jimmy Buffett is really quite remarkable in his ability to handle an audience and to actually see them.
I feel a little bit like Livingston opening for Jethro Tull, though. We're standing here talking, and a lot of you want to hear him sing, so maybe we should get out of the way and let Livingston